Okay, this video is primarily about suppression of evidence and perversion of the course of justice in respect to essential information that could have vindicated David Bain being withheld from the court between 1994 and 2009. And the evidence is this. ESR scientist Peter Henschel had in his working notes that he found blood in the barrel of the rifle used in the Bain killings. Yet he didn't include this in his initial court evidence, and it wasn't revealed in court until a 2009 trial. Is this perversion of the course of justice or not? Also on page 260, defence scientist Peter Ross said blood could only have got into the barrel from drawback. The blood in the barrel could only have been Robin Bain's, because he was the last person shot with the rifle lying beside him. But more importantly, blood inside the barrel is evidence of a direct contact bullet entry wound, which, given the position of entry, strongly implies suicide by Robin Bain, thereby exonerating David from the murders. Was Crown forensic scientist Peter Henschel clearly part of a Crown conviction team deliberately withholding evidence for the purposes of convicting David Bain? If so, he should be given a substantial jail term. On page 264 of Trial by Ambush, Crown forensic scientist Dempster was forced to admit that there were a number of positions from which suicide could easily be achieved with the rifle, despite asserting in the first trial suicide was virtually impossible, and thereby clearly inferring that David was the killer. And of course we all know that David was convicted in this first trial. But the key point of this video is, was this evidence deliberately suppressed? The blood in the barrel was in the working notes of ESR scientist Peter Henschel, and yet he didn't include this in his initial court evidence, and it wasn't revealed in court until the 2009 hearing, when everything was starting to come out of the bag. But you cannot tell me that a forensic scientist would forget or not be completely aware of the significance of evidence such as blood in the barrel of a rifle, and you cannot tell me that a forensic scientist would not remember whether he had given that evidence in court. So my position is, a scientist, a trained forensic scientist, paid by the court to give evidence of huge importance, would not forget that they had seen such evidence, would be fully aware of the significance of such evidence, and they would be fully aware of whether they had given that evidence or not in court. And in my view, he is guilty of suppressing that evidence from the court and must be prosecuted. So my message to you, Judith Collins, is to stop corroborating with this pack of proven liars, compensate David Bain, vindicate David Bain, apologise to David Bain, and prosecute all those who have perverted the course of justice in this case. There's an interesting little side point here. You'll remember that Dempster was saying that suicide by Robin Bain with the rifle would have been near impossible, and later on he was forced to admit that it was actually quite easy in a number of positions. Would this assertion of his, or would the police and Crown fixation with finding evidence that incriminated David have anything to do with the fact that the police armourer was caught out in court mismeasuring the length of the rifle by about 8 centimetres? There's a lot of strange stuff goes down once a team deviates from their original purpose. And as I've said before, I believe, well, I'm convinced that it's even part of police protocol, that the purpose of the police and the Crown prosecution team is not to get a kill, not to shoot a rabbit, but to present all evidence for the court to decide, not for them to decide and then go hunting for specific evidence that matches their theory, but to simply gather evidence and present that for the court, the judge and the jury to decide.